I've got a confession to make.
I need to get this off my chest. As a business owner, we all make mistakes.
I've got to confess.
Here to do it all again. Welcome, Kim Barrett, episode 5 of Confessions of a Business Owner.
Pumped to be at episode number 5. Cannot wait.
Oh, now we've got a bit of a special edition one today. So we're doing something a bit different, well, a little bit different anyway. During the week, I got asked a very good question, and I thought we'd bring it into this podcast. I know we've been talking a little bit about it kind of off the air, but we wanted to do, I suppose, confessions of our biggest lessons of 2017. So the things that we've taken the most learning from in the past year. And we've got a few each, so we're going to go back and forth and kind of talk them all down. But before we do that, how's things your side?
No, my side is good, man. We've just been wrapping up for the year. So our office officially closes in 2 hours and 45 minutes for the rest of 2017. So it's good just kind of tying everything up, wrapping it up for the last couple of days, which is good fun.
Amazing. That's what I like to hear. It's really interesting. It's I've had a massive network effect happen in my life from doing this podcast with you. So we spoke about at the start of the December that the idea of making December your biggest month of the year, like this isn't the time to be backing you down. I've had a absolute beast because of this. So December's actually ended up being my biggest month of the year. Thank you to the influence of Kim. And that's why it's so important to associate with the right people. Network effect in action.
Man, that is epic. That's actually ridiculous. I think mine is, I haven't got the final numbers because we're actually doing a little bit of a sales challenge, and I get the final numbers after we finish this podcast. But I think ours is as well. I think by almost, almost 10% bigger than any other month of the year.
That is amazing. That is so good. It just absolutely challenging those limiting beliefs. But we're going to come back to that later because that is absolutely the recap on what's been happening at the end. But I'd love to dig straight into it. Let's start talking about those biggest lessons of 2017. So you're going to kick off. You're going to go with the first. So what we'll do is give me the lesson, and then I want a little bit of the explanation or the reason why or the story. And then we'll go back and forth from there.
All right. Well, I'll start with my biggest one. The biggest one I think is definitely, and you kind of touched on it already, and we talk about it a lot, but it's opening up to alliances and partnerships bigger than ever before. And I think this year has really, from start of the year till now, has been had a huge effect. And the deeper lesson within the lessception, I call it, is that when I was building some of these partnerships, I was getting partnerships that were serving myself, but not necessarily looking at how those partnerships could also service my other partners, my other areas of influence and networks. And sometimes I would do small interactions like that, but I think without properly looking at them and identifying the opportunities not only for myself, but also then introducing to other people in the network, it's kind of extrapolated a lot further than I thought it would, just by taking off the focus not only from myself building the connection and association, but then also introducing that to the association to my other external network of people as well has had a really compound effect, if you will, big time.
I love that so much. And I'm going to lead in at the example of what we were talking about last week is we're going to Bali for the Mastermind event with the Unstoppable family. That's something you passed through to myself and some other people. And that's gone huge, dude. That has connected a lot of very, very smart people into one place. And it's first off, massive thank you for being involved in that and having a lesson.
Yeah, no, it's been tremendous, and that's why it's kind of only the realization of that's only been in the past few weeks, but I think it's been compounding over the whole year, which has been pretty cool.
Well, I'm hoping that can have an effect on me as well, and I can do the same. It's certainly made me reevaluate a lot of the ways we're doing things because I can recognize that in my own life and my own business. So once again, swiping and deploying something that you're doing so well, dude. I think that's a huge one.
Yeah, that's big. Now, Charlie, give me yours. What's the big numero uno one for you?
Yeah, so I look back on this year and I kind of broke it down. I was sitting there and I was going, okay, what's really been the big lessons here? Now, this year I did something very, very different than I'd done any other year. And I decided to focus on my own development over business development. So this is my personal work or personal development in many areas of my life over business development, which might be, business skills or business courses and things like that. And what I came to realize now, the reason I did this was that I felt that I was the limiter. I felt that it didn't matter how many more business skills I kept putting on. It seemed that it was always hitting this same glass ceiling. It was like I was getting to this same point and I was like, all right, something's up here. There's something I don't know. So focusing on my own development actually broke me through that glass ceiling. Like I was absolutely the limiter. So the theory was correct in a sense. Like I've had a massive amount of growth from that. But my number one lesson is that your own development is actually more important than your business development.
I like that. It's deep. It's good.
I was going to say, we're going deep this episode.
No, it's definitely, that's good. And I think I've seen the effects of that on you over the year. And it seems like, as you said, like culminated in you having, funnily enough, your best business month ever in December. And you had no focus, and that hasn't been your focus, hasn't been on learning new skills necessarily directly apportioned into business. So it's pretty cool to see that happen.
Well, this actually sounds horrible, and I've got to be careful how I say this. I don't think I acquired any new business skills this year. I feel like it was all in there, but I wasn't, I suppose, emotionally able to handle that or able to get the clarity and points around it. So doing all that work really it absolutely changed my world. So even in December, for me to have a month like this, let's say last year, probably would have been really stressed or anxious or run down. Where this year it's I'm practically running around my house doing cowboy dances and shit, really enjoying the process. It's had a huge effect on me. So I think that's going to take a huge difference into what I do into 2018 and definitely keeping it at the top of the pile.
No, that's awesome. I love it. Love it.
Yeah, all right, now the pressure's on. Number 2.
All right, pressure into number 2. So number 2 for mine would be not settling for ordinary, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So, and there's always this little quote that always kind of stuck in my head. It's like the only difference between extraordinary and ordinary is that little bit extra, right? Obviously, a little funny little play on words.
Okay.
But accepting ordinary in any areas, and my partner, she's very good for this. Where it's if she doesn't like something, she will not accept it. She will push it back or call someone, or whereas a lot of the time I just kind of accept it. And I decided to kind of flip that a little bit and go, well, actually I shouldn't, there's no reason why I should accept mediocrity or ordinariness, not even a word, but I'll say it anyway. Being ordinary in certain areas, there's no reason for that. And I don't have to accept that. Again, similar to what we said about December being a quiet month and everything like that. And I also, tried it out with something, not long ago, which, equated to me getting a new car for free, which I'll touch on after as well. But just by not accepting the level of mediocreness that most people do, I think it's led to a lot of changes in our business, the way we do things, but also just in the level of expectation I have in life and what's actually possible, and then taking away any limiting beliefs, if you will, that anything has to be done in a certain way, not just in business, but any area of life has to be done like this. Just getting rid of that completely has been a pretty big lesson, I would say, for this year.
Oh, I almost like that more than your number 1. I think that is such an important one that many people can relate to. Even in doing this podcast, it's we actually recorded, I think you remember this, we recorded 3 episodes and decided it wasn't good enough, and we started again to raise the bar because we weren't kind of happy to settle for what we'd done so far. I think many people, even myself previously, would have gone, oh, it's all right, we'll pick it up along the way. But it was definitely your influence in that. So I can see how you've been applying that one as well.
Yeah, so it's definitely been a big one, a big change for me to be able to accept and actually use that. But now I think, especially as I said, with some of the things that have happened in the last couple of weeks, I'm well, actually there is no cap, no limit to what's possible. So there's no reason to do that at all.
That's awesome. Now, do you want to tell the car story now? Like the car story definitely ties into this.
Yeah, I may as well. So I remember, like, I can't remember where I read it or saw it, but I remember a story of Jay Abraham getting a car for work done. I think it was either Jaguar or Range Rover, like a quite high-end brand. He did some work with them, and in exchange, they gave him a car. And I've had the same car for 10 years? 8 years. 8 years I've had the same car, and I've just never gotten around to getting rid of it, changing it, anything like that. And it's been like getting noticeably worn down recently. I'm like, it's just getting like dirtier, and like the paint's fading, and it was when I got it, it was brand new, but now it's just kind of like degraded down. And I was like, well, I need new cars, like, but I don't want to pay for a new car. I don't want to get a loan or anything like that. So I'm going to put up a post, and I'm going to frame it around the whole Jay Abraham story so that people know that it's been done before. So I put that in there as like a pre-frame. And then I went through and I was like, look, I'm looking for a dealership, a brand, someone that has a car. Like, it doesn't have to be Aston Martin, but that would be nice. But I'm just looking for someone who has a car who needs marketing services that we can do an exchange for, so I can have a new car. And I literally got a message from one of the guys that we share an office with, from my dad, and they're all like joking and like stirring me up. And they're like, yeah, whatever, it's not going to happen. And then I started thinking, I was like, who do I know they've been working with brands or cars? So I tagged in one guy who's been doing film work for Mercedes, tagged in one guy who used to work in a couple different car yards for under the, I think it's like the AHG group or whatever they are, tagged them in. And then they tagged a bunch of people. And literally the next day, so I posted on like a Wednesday night, Thursday morning, I had two people message me straight away, brothers that own two different car dealerships,
Excellent.
Nissan and Holden. And the Nissan guy got onto me first, called me up, and I missed him, called him back, and he's like, yeah, look, we need to hit a certain amount of revenue. This is what it costs us every month. So if you can generate us more than what it costs us, we'll happily give you a car. We'll cover all the servicing. We'll cover all of the registration, or on-road costs. You just put petrol in, and every 3 months you just bring it back, and we'll swap you for a new one. As long as you can keep that value up, and it's a very minuscule number in comparison to what we're going to be able to generate for them. So I was just sitting there in shock. I was like, and he's like, yeah, cool. So you're going to come in Saturday. We'll show you the cars. You choose one, and then you can come pick it up on Monday. And I was like, what? And I was like, trying to be all cool. Like, of course, yes, I'll come and visit your premises on Saturday. Not a problem. Go in there. And he's like, yep, cool, done. This is the deal. This is what the people were doing for us before. They got us like one lead in the whole of November. So if you can beat, and we're paying them, double what we were asking you to be able to generate us in value. So if you can do that, obviously happy days. The accountant said you can have this car, top of the range one of like a Nissan X-Trail, because I wanted like a SUV type. He's like, yeah, cool. Come in Wednesday morning and it's all yours.
That's crazy. So do you have the car?
I've got them. Yeah, my keys right here. The new keys with a push button start for those of you watching on YouTube. So it's ridiculous. And then I sold my car straight away the same day. Put it on Gumtree and have like two people come look at it tomorrow. So hopefully get rid of that as well. But I was like, literally from literally a week from post to picking up the car was the turnaround time. So it was ridiculous.
What a world we live in. I just think that is amazing. And I think it ties, into pretty much everything you're saying here about including other people. So tagging those guys, getting through to everyone else, and then not settling for average. I mean, average was a car loan, going to just down the dealer and buying one, where completely unique thinking is just so special here. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm pumped. So now I get to drive around in a very comfortable car, feeling good, feel cool. So when I press it into reverse, it's got the reversing cameras on there, so I feel all fancy. But no, it was good. So it was, literally just like applying it and saying, and it was funny because I called my dad as I was driving back on Saturday, because the only thing is I only have 2 car parking spots at our house because we're in an apartment. And I called him up and I was like, just went looking at cars. And he starts laughing. He's like, oh, I love it, son. You love to go out there and try these things. It's so you're just going to end up buying one? I was like, no. Like, I got the deal. I'm going to pick up the new car on Wednesday. I'm not paying for it. I just wanted to see if I can park my car at yours since I'm getting a new one. And he's just literally like pisses himself laughing. And he's like, I thought I was the wheeler and dealer of the family. This is great. He's like, I'm going to go over to visit your nan right now and tell her the story.
You're definitely going to rock up on Christmas Day with that car. Maybe a few donuts on the front lawn just to rub it in.
Yeah, exactly. Got to show him up for that. But it was so funny. But then, yeah, as I said, it all came off, and I was just like laser focused. I was like, this is happening, and I'm getting one before Christmas.
It's so good. It is absolutely. Best story of the year, I reckon. Actually, do you know what? Second best. First best story of the year is Lord Barrett. Getting your definitely the Lord Kim Barrett is 100% got to be the best story of the year. This is number 2, though.
So good. But now I've taken the limelight. But Mr. Charley said I need to hear your number 2.
Yeah, number 2. This is another one that's helped me a lot over the last few years in general, but particularly this year again. Okay, so when we encounter problems or challenges, right? In the past, I'd often thought that I need to be the one to solve them. So I think, we're faced as business owners, often the buck stops with us. We're the last line of defense, and we've got to make a decision or we've got to do things. So my second biggest lesson of 2017 was understanding that getting the advice or listening to others who have already been through the challenges has saved me so much time and energy. So I kind of like to think about it. My best thinking got me to a point where I encountered this challenge. So I didn't foresee it. It's come to me from here. So obviously, even though I might be able to solve it even if I think I've got the answer, or I think I know how to do it, again, we encounter that same thing. So what I've become really good at is asking other people who may have already solved this or encountered this, and really listening to their opinion and understanding it, even if I don't disagree with it. So even if I do disagree with what they're saying, making sure that I'm listening through and understanding the reasoning so that I can make better decisions. So listening to others who have already solved the place I'm at is my second biggest lesson of 2017.
I like that. That's so pertinent. I think there's so many business owners, they do get to the point where they go, well, I can probably just figure it out. Like, I've got myself to here. But then it's like, yeah, as you said, like, what got you here won't get you there. So, and it's so important. And that's why it's good to have such a good group of people around you all the time to be able to do that. Because I think a lot of business owners put themselves into probably like, not exile, but it's like you put yourself out by yourself. Like, I work late, I work hard, go to the office in the morning, do all this stuff, and you kind of like exile yourself from groups of people, if you will. But then you need to actually forcibly put yourself back into, but probably leveled up groups where you can ask those questions and find the right people. Because that's the other thing, is like, how if you're not in a group like that, how do you find the people to ask the questions to? So you can't ask the butcher at the local shop. You can't ask a person that works for you.
Whoa. If you've got a meat-related question, then you should absolutely ask the butcher. Like, if you've got meat problems, that's the man you need to go.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. If I'm trying to work out how to get 16 links of sausages out of my pig intestine, of course I'm going to the butcher.
Absolutely.
But if it's necessarily a business, like more business growth, more business focused question in relation to those specifics, then it's got to be where do we find the people to ask those questions to?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons we hang around in certain circles and liaise with certain people, is for that thinking. And then the other thing is, that's one of the reasons we started the association. That's one of the reasons we have our mastermind group of people, is to create that level of thinking and ideas. So I want to give a couple of examples quick, because there's a couple here that have really helped me. So number one was my accountant. So I have listened and spoken with a number of accountants. Some I really liked their view, and some I really didn't. And ultimately I went with an accountant, Anthony is his name. I'll probably give him a little plug later. But when I spoke to him and I really listened to his strategy, right, that absolutely made a huge difference to my financial numbers for the year. Like, he had a huge impact in how he set things up. And ultimately, I'm in a much better financial place because of his judgment and listening to all those other people. If I'd have just gone with who I liked, or if I'd have just gone with the first person, hadn't taken counsel and thought, I'm making the right decision, that would have cost me a ton this year. Not only that, is like, I would still be kind of, beating my head against the wall into the next years from not doing that. Another prime one is working with Lynn. So Lynn Padetti, my business partner in Outsourcing Angel, is that often I, come up with ideas for the business, right? And it's like, all right, my way is the way. And but when I've listened to Lynn and let her do things, I'm like, oh shit, I was wrong. She did that heaps better, even with my best thinking, especially around team and recruitment. Like, she's an absolute genius. So I was like, okay, that's, taking that humility to decision making, massive difference in my life. Like, I'd love everyone else to have that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so aligned, as you say. And I've had the same probably with my bookkeeper and accountant as well. It's like when I actually, there's certain things, it's like, tells me them like 2 or 3 times in a row. Then I ask him for feedback. He's like, well, are you actually going to listen to me this time? Or are you just going to do whatever you want anyway? And I was like, no. Like, I'm done with that. I'm 100% listening and doing what you tell me to do.
Yeah, but if you make a bad decision after listening to them, at least you've done that under good counsel. Like, you made a bad decision.
Sure.
All right, I know I should be doing this. I'm going to do this. All right, so let's lead it in here. What's number 3 for Kim?
It's a good one, and it's probably the most boring. But I think for me, the biggest one was hyper focusing on my numbers, especially cash flow. Because previous years, it's been so long, it's like sales coming in, and I not that I ignored it, but it's like I didn't have as much of a focus this year. In previous years, I would say, on exactly what's coming up, where things are getting to, like cash flow forecasting, all this sort of stuff. And then working out what needs to happen in relation for all of that to happen. Whereas this year, I think I definitely had a bigger focus on it, and I've definitely ended up in a much stronger position, I would think, at the end of the year, by having that as a focus. And then, each month I have now booked in a session with my accountant. We go through the numbers. We update our forecast each month to see if we're on track, what's dropping off, if this is increasing, why, all that sort of stuff. And then future planning as well for tax provisions for that period of time based on, and all that sort of stuff, which is quite, it's probably the most boring part of business, but probably the most important part. And putting a big emphasis on that and drawing that to my attention, much more, like every single, 2 times a day at the moment, has made it dramatically better and given me much more hyper awareness to make decisions accurately. Because before it's like, cool, I want to do this or buy this, I'm just going to buy it. And it's like, well, actually, if I look at my forecast, I have this expense coming up. I have pay-as-you-go withholding due here, I have BAS due there. So maybe I should wait until I get either some new income in to cover that, or wait until after that period to ensure that I have enough cash flow to make all these payments. And yeah, that's probably been, as I said, one of the more boring sides, but definitely one of the most important lessons I've learned and got smacked over the head with this year, to make sure that I learned it and stood and paid attention to it.
Oh, I tell you what, you might be rubbing on a sore point for a lot of people listening to this. I actually think, I want to say 90% of business owners are financially negligent. I would say that's by the estimates of people I speak to, wouldn't go to that depth. So I think that is absolutely fantastic. And I think we all have to have an experience before we take it seriously. So it sounds like you've had one there. Mine was that my company was growing massively, and then I hired 2 people and then couldn't pay myself because I didn't understand the cash flow cycle. It's like, what do you mean? Revenue's going up, we're hiring team, everything looks great, and then just no money. We were flat broke. And it took that experience for me to really want to take my numbers seriously. And I'm thrilled to hear that is your most important lesson, because that stands to serve you for the rest of your life, no matter what you do in business. So that's a great one, Kim.
Yeah, so it's been good. As I said, it's been painful. And I did this, exactly the same scenario, everything growing. And then it's like, I can pay everyone but me. I'll just pay myself next week. And you're like, oh, that's not very good. And then I think it was a podcast that you told me to listen to. And then I was like, I'd already made all these changes, but it just kind of reaffirmed it for me, where it's like about paying yourself first and making sure you have that as one of the priorities. So then it's like, cool. As soon as I did that and put that to the forefront of my thinking, everything else kind of was much easier. And then same thing, it's like, yeah. And, obviously some people I think can maybe feel like they're doing it selfishly. And it's like, well, on payday, the first payment I process is mine, that goes to mine. And then everyone else's, but now we have the cash flow to make sure everyone else gets paid. No one gets left off. But just by even doing that little subtle tweak has made a big impact.
That is so good. I think that's massive. And that podcast we listened to, and where I got that from as well was from MJP seminars. Let's Talk About Money. Fantastic thing. I think everyone should listen to it because it's so true. And especially in business, like we can often neglect ourselves or not put ourselves first. Like I will always pay my staff before me. I will say this, but I've got to be smart enough where that's not the case. Like I've got to make sure everything's in place where we grow smart. We grow very smart.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the same. It's like I always make sure that there's more than enough. But even just by making the decision, because normally when I process myself at the end. And I was like, well, I know I've got enough money to process all the pay runs and all the creditors, but I put myself at the very beginning and then process it. And even just that little subtle like tweak, it's weird how it just makes that big of a difference.
Absolutely.
And now I'm starting to hear yours, the very last for the 2017. Charlie, the biggest lesson from yourself for 2017?
Oh, it's actually, as I said, my other two were definitely my main two. I couldn't separate them. They were my big ones. But the last one actually comes into the run of last year, the end of this year's run. And I've realized that it's about doing what you're good at. So I'm going to use a story to articulate this one the best. So cryptocurrency has been taking the world by storm. Like you can't go anywhere without talking about Bitcoin or Ethereum or all these other coins or Bitcar, which we were talking about even before this. And it's very, very exciting. It is. And I'm a numbers and structure person. So I'm naturally drawn to things like the share market or exchanges and things like that. However, it's not actually what I'm good at. And I'll explain. So I naturally bit the bug and got into some crypto, having a bit of fun. But in my first weeks, it was consuming me. I'd become almost addicted to it. So I had my phone going off, giving me alerts, getting up at odd hours to make trades because the markets are never shut and all these things. And before you knew it, I was run down and not really enjoying my life as much. And then I came back and I'm kind of sitting in there and like with all this hassle and tassel, I might have made a couple of $1,000. I really might. And in the background, I'm like, okay, that business you've got that you're actually good at, even though you weren't putting as much into it, is doing heaps better. Why don't you just do more of that? So I came to the realization that it was like, okay, for me, that is an absolute distraction. That is fun, but it's not actually what I'm good at. By doubling down in my skill set in business and keeping some focus on that, I can actually do much, much better. So there was a huge turning point in kind of my mindset and going, all right, well, if you want to have crypto fun, that's fine. But it can't be taking over your life like that. It can't be at the expense of other things. Double down on the things that are getting you results, and then you're going to do much, much better. So I did a bit of an adjustment, changed my schedule, and obviously limited the crypto exposure because I think it's a thing that's very easy to get addicted to. And the quality of my life has gone through the roof. And strangely enough, we've ended up having this massive December run thanks to you with that new and improved focus. So the big lesson here is double down on what you're good at. Just focus in that area because I'll bet anything I make more in business doubling down on it than I will in crypto because that's where I can excel. Now, if you're a professional trader and you love crypto and all the rest of it, then obviously that's your area. But I think people are almost chasing something that's the in topic instead of focusing on that thing that can really kind of set the difference.
Yeah, 100%. Such a good realization. I think they're similar. I'm going to have to play this and send this to a few people in my office who have been getting a little bit bitten by, I think, that bug as well. And it's such a good point that you make there. Yeah, it's so good. So on point. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's important for everyone. But that was my number 3 anyway. So we've got to loop back around now to our last episode because we left people hanging a little bit on KIMMUS, which if you can get the, is it an acronym? No, it's not an acronym. It's a synonym, I think. Anyway.
It's a season of celebration, man. What are you talking about?
Absolutely. So the official holiday of the podcast is KIMMUS.
Every December we take a few days off to celebrate KIMMUS. No, but I think because when we started, we would have been at 1 or 2, only maybe 1 or 2 days into KIMMUS, I think.
We definitely were.
Yeah. So it was 12 days, and I just obviously repurposed Christmas and made it KIMMUS, where I was delivering content, and then every 3 days I was making an offer, like an advent calendar, which, to be honest, that part failed miserably. To be obviously 100% radical transparency, it failed terribly. I know. I made some, and to be honest, I probably didn't frame. Like, I just had fun with it, so I didn't really frame the offers well enough either. So I made a few offers in there, which were so. But the biggest thing I took from it is, like, I did have that consistency of doing live streams, which I haven't done in ages, and my engagement has definitely gone up. Like, I just did a random one yesterday, on the back of those 12 days, and yeah, much more engagement than I had previously. Tons more comments. So, just compounding the effect of the live video and giving myself a reason to do it, especially because I had a little logo made up that was on all my lives. I couldn't really let that down and go, 3 days in, no one bought after my first offer. I'm just going to kind of give up on that. So I kind of put that there to keep myself going. But now that I'm doing periodic lives, I'm getting much more engagement because people, 12 days, similar times, every single day, I was getting people to tune in, trying to get them to subscribe and get notified when I go live and whatnot too. So the back end of that, I think, has been very good. And a lot of people commenting and saying, yeah, they love them. No one took action upon them yet, but I always know that everything we always talk about is a long game. So it's going to be, a compounding thing, especially now getting me back into the rhythm of doing regular lives on different topics as well.
Well, I'm going to put it out there. I think one of the smartest things I've seen from you in the last few years is the brownie points. So since I've known you, you've always had a focus on building up brownie points with other people for the long game. And there's a huge accumulation where if Kim Barrett was in need, I'm pretty sure half the business owner community would come to help you because you've just been compounding that on such a big level. So absolutely all about the long game here. And I will say this as well, you're very good at the Facebook Lives. It's been certainly a skill you've acquired in this last run as well. And the consistency, I've seen the numbers come up. So how are we going for results? How's things been on the run into these 3 hours, probably 2 hours to go till the office close?
Well, we've done pretty well. So we had our challenge over, which was during Kinmas. I can't actually say whether or not Kinmas is directly correlated to it because we also had Salesmas at the same time, right? Whereas we had a challenge. So it was myself and all our sales team. Our sales team did okay. I did want them to do much. I was hoping and wishing for them to do much better purely for themselves. But basically Calvin, who's another speaker at the Bali event, and myself threw down. So, but here's a very important lesson, right? So he finished work yesterday at lunchtime. So he's like, done and dusted, I'm out. And as well, he's stopped selling up until that point. And always from the start, the frame was whoever gets the most cash received, not sales, but cash received is the winner of Salesman's Challenge. So I still have a couple more follow-ups to go. But yesterday at close of business, so after he left at like 1:30. He was $8,000 ahead of me in cash received. Right? $8,000 ahead of me of cash received. Then, no, he was $10,000 ahead of me cash received. Last night, I sold something for $2,200. Then I made a $500 sale. So I brought it back down to about $7,000 was like the difference. This morning, I get a message from someone saying, hey, Kim, remember how you did this proposal for me? Queensland government was giving away a digital marketing grant for anyone in that has their business in Queensland. Like the government approved our grant today. And I was like, and I had to go back and I was like, I don't even remember what I quoted them because I did it for this grant. And it was $7,426 was the quote. So yeah, we're good to go ahead with that. Let's get that process and get that started. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to go look at the numbers, but I'm pretty sure I'm $426 ahead with 3 hours, 15 minutes left. So unless he's cheekily making a sale, and I do have two more people confirmed, but unless he's cheekily making a couple $100 cash sale right now, I could come away with...
I'll tell you what, first thing is I wouldn't put it past Kelvin, even though he's not in the office. Like, he is a phenomenal salesman, and what he does is phenomenal as well. Like, it's 2 for 2 there. So I'm like, it wouldn't surprise me if he's got a few sneakies in there. So I wouldn't be celebrating too early. But on the other hand, what a story, Kim. The universe is providing that.
Well, that's it. That's why I'm still going. So I'm not giving up yet until it hits 5 o'clock and I tally the board because as well, it has to be on the board. So unless he phone calls in to the office manager, general manager to add up some extra numbers, I'm going to keep pushing until we hit 5 p.m. Western Australia Standard Time.
Excellent. I think that's so good. I love this little run you've got here. What a great way to rally the troops in Christmas spirit and like bring it all together. I think that is so good. Kimmas is now the official holiday this time of year. So well done, bud. Well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And let's look back. And I apologize because I really should have remembered it. I wrote it down last week. But we did have your new 2IC who was in charge. I forget her name if you can remind me.
Lisa is her name.
Lisa. I was about to say Lauren, so I'm so glad I didn't say that. So Lisa was in, and obviously previously you were away and you didn't really get the time to do any onboarding because you jumped into like a 7-day, 13-hour-a-day personal development event. So how is that kind of wrapped up after all that stuff?
Well, first thing, you can see I've gone monk after this. I'm shaving my head now after that experience. I'm enlightened. Okay.
Yeah.
No. Okay. So rough start. I was going into this personal development program, wasn't able to give Lisa the time or attention that was going to work. And she needed, in all honesty. When we bring people in, we've got to give them time. However, I've had time now and it's made a massive difference. So what I've been doing is making sure that I take use of something called Loom. So Loom is a screen recording and video tool. Now, essentially what I've been doing is put in the effort where I will spend half an hour just looming stuff I do and talking through it and downloading my brain. Then on the other side of that, I've been having like maybe every second day, I've been having a meeting to go over work and responsibilities and playing systems we're creating. And the development curve has kind of gone from like this to like where this person's like really coming into their own. And it's quite nice to watch. Like this is something where I'm finally at a place where it's like I enjoy watching people take their stride in, especially in one of my companies. It's nice to see someone kicking ass for me. So when it's come to working with this, like we've been working on a project for a big launch in January next year. And it's gone from like, I suppose a little bit scared to make moves. Like someone's always like, oh, is this okay? And double checking it. I'm like, oh, what about this? To all of a sudden like coming in and going like, right, this is how it's done. And like laying in the body slam. And I'm like, man, like I was checking over some work today and it was just really, really phenomenal to see. So I'm really excited about it. I'm confident I've made the right decision with Lisa and very excited for 2018. I think we're going to see some huge things. Honestly, my number one concern with her, and it's not even a concern, it's like I love it when this happens to an extent, but I can see after a couple of years with me, she's going to be so ready to take on the world and I'll have to get someone else. She's going to be dominating the entrepreneur scene in some way, shape or form. I'm sure it's absolutely there.
That's beautiful. I love to hear, man. As you said, it's good. And I've just had our previous office manager step into general manager role with a whole new bunch of roles and responsibilities as well. At our Christmas party, gave her Christmas present, which was business cards with the general manager title on there. It's a little cheeky welcome aboard.
Very cheeky Christmas bonus. All right.
Yeah. But they were cool. They were in Boston stuff. They had risen up letters, we went all out. But it was cool. So, but it's exciting times, I think, and it's very cool to hear. And I'm definitely keen to hear and see how that progresses because I'll be mirroring and matching that stuff up with what I do as well.
Yeah, so that's one of my big things for next year. So every year I like to kind of look at, I suppose, making training and things like that. So something I'm really focused on is I think the space of bringing in new people and how to train them up and make them effective is massively under-resourced. I mean, no offense, there's a lot of Facebook training out there. There's a lot of Facebook courses. Of course, yours is the best I've ever come across. But when it comes to like people and management, I think it's just heavily undervalued and under-resourced areas. There's not many good courses on those types of things. So that is one I'm going to be bringing to light. So I'll be happy to share more of it on this podcast. And then that was a training I'm planning on releasing in 2018.
Beautiful, man. Looking forward to it. And now, obviously, this is the, we kind of committed we're going to be doing another one this during this period anyway. So we'll obviously be sharing our stories of drunken Christmas days, I assume. But is there anything that you're working on over, just to give the listeners a little sneaky peek that you're working between now and when we catch up next week that we can kind of check in on?
Yeah, so between now and next week is, so obviously we've got Christmas. So we're on December 21st at the point of recording this, and then we're coming into Christmas and New Year's. And there's something I really like to do. It's almost a bit cliche, but it's like I like this time of year as a time of reflection. So step one for me is all about, looking back on the year. And we've shared a lot of that today. So looking back, what were the learning points, what went right, what went wrong, and everything that sits from there. The next part for me is thinking about where do I want to go in 2018? What do I want to achieve in 2018? So over the next part, I'm going to start building out that plan and structure for what 2018 is going to look like from my side. Beautiful,
man. Love it. I think with everything, it's like I'm still not quite done with 2017. Yeah, I've got still got a few little sneaky peeks up the sleeve for the next couple of days anyway. So we're going to definitely be taking some time, especially 26, 27, 28. I'll kind of be relaxing, reflecting, reviewing with family away from Perth, which will be great. But I'm also going to just check. I'm just going to see, because I've never done one. But we're going to throw out a little Boxing Day sale. Obviously, being Australians, Boxing Day sale, purely a 24-hour thing. My sales guys want to work Boxing Day. So we're throwing out a 50% off.
Sorry, I'm a little bit heated here. I might be a little bit turned on. Sales guys that want to work Boxing Day.
Yeah, they want to work Boxing Day. So we've got two of the guys throwing down on Boxing Day. So we're doing a 24-hour, 50% off all our programs for Boxing Day to see what kind of grab we get. So we've got a couple of big broadcasters set up and a couple ads to do for that on Saturday, which I'll be prepping just to see how the heat goes there. And then as I said, definitely like reflecting, but also planning. So I'm planning to do a direct mail piece, which I've never done in the history of the world on the second week of Jan. So I've roughly planned it out, planned out my sales letter. I'm posting out a letter and a USB to see if we can do something cool with some direct mail come the second week of Jan.
That is so good. I like that you're trying some new things there. That's absolutely, innovation comes into 2018. So that is a huge amount of things we're going to be talking about next week now. All of a sudden, this podcast episode for next week gets a little bit interesting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. All right, well, we might wrap it up for this one here. Now, for anyone listening, our mastermind, so me and Kim's mastermind, the association is taking new members in 2018, which is when this podcast will be out. So if you are someone that wants to come and see behind the scenes of how me and Kim run our businesses, as well as hang out with an extraordinary network of people now. So we've got about a fair few people in there now with some doing massive things. So if you want to come and see what it's like to be them and hear about what they're doing, then this is the place you're going to want to be. So that is the association. I'll make sure there's a link to it under this episode, wherever you are watching or listening to it. But that's it from me. Everyone, have a great year. Kim, have a great Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everyone.
Well, that's it. We'll wrap it up from here.
I've got to confess.